In Season 1, Episode 7 of Game of Thrones, the political intrigue reaches a devastating climax as Eddard Stark faces betrayal from all sides. After uncovering the truth about King Robert's heirs, Eddard confronts Queen Cersei, only to be outmaneuvered by Littlefinger. The City Watch, whom Eddard trusted, turn against him, slaughtering his loyal bodyguards in a brutal ambush. Littlefinger drives the dagger of betrayal deeper by holding a knife to Eddard's throat, cementing his treachery. This pivotal moment shifts the power dynamics in King's Landing and showcases the deadly consequences of playing the Game of Thrones without allies. At the Lannister camp, as a small part of the Stark army marches through the night, the Landsiders make camp and ready themselves for the Battle of the Green Fork. The Stark army is easily destroyed by the larger Lannister army. However, it was a diversion to allow Robb to capture Jaime Lannister. On the borders of the Riverlands, Lord Tywin Lannister has assembled an army of 60,000 men, with which he plans to oppose the Starks and punish Catelyn's capture of his son Tyrion Lannister. As he stands in his tent skinning a dead stag, he tells his elder son, Jaime, that this conflict will decide the fate of their family. They will either forge a dynasty that will last 1,000 years or cease to exist, as the Targaryens had done. He orders Jaime to become the man he was meant to be, and to take 30,000 men and besiege Riverrun, Catelyn's childhood home and the seat of House Tully. Jaime ponders why Tywin would risk so much for the ugly, stunted son that he hates. But to Tywin, a Lannister is a Lannister, even though he considers Tyrion the least worthy member of their family. Any affront to their family must be punished, or it makes them look weak. At Winterfell. Winterfell is in the center of the northernmost province of the Seven Kingdoms, on the King's Road, and south of the Northern Mountains. In Winterfell, Theon Greyjoy attempts to bully Osha, the wildling woman captured in the recent raid. He insists that she refer to him as my lord, but she is unimpressed with his antics. She points out that he is not entitled to this, as his father is still alive. Maester Luwin dismisses Theon and questions Osha about why her band crossed the wall and were fleeing as far south as south goes. She claims that the White Walkers have awoken after a millennia asleep and are coming south, to Luwin's skepticism. At the Wall. The Wall is a vast ice and stone structure, 300 miles long and 700 feet high. It acts as the northern border of the Seven Kingdoms, stretching from the Frostfang Mountains in the west to the Bay of Seals in the east. Jon Snow and Samwell Tarly are standing watch atop the wall when Benjen's horse is spotted returning, but to Jon's horror, there is no sign of Benjen himself. Later on, Lord Commander Jeor Mormont names the trainees as men of the Night's Watch. He hands out assignments, but to Jon's disgust he is being sent to the stewards, not the rangers. He will work directly for the Lord Commander as his personal steward. His attempts to plead his case to Maester Aemon, who has selected Sam as his own steward, are met with indifference. However, Sam suggests to Jon that while this move was possibly orchestrated by Esser Alliser Thorne to punish Jon, it is also an opportunity for the Lord Commander to groom Jon directly for command. Both are surprised when Pypar admits that he was sent to the Watch for refusing to give sexual favors to a lord, not for stealing a wheel of cheese to feed his sister as he had previously claimed. Nothing about being sent to the Wall is fair. Convinced, Jon, as a worshipper of the old gods, is allowed to say his oath of fealty to the Night's Watch in front of a heart tree just inside the eaves of the haunted forest. Sam decides to take the oath with Jon, as the seven gods his father worshipped have never seemed to answer him. Accompanied by Othel Yarwick and 3 more brothers of the Watch, Sam and Jon take their oaths. Then they are acknowledged by the others as members of the Watch. Ghost finds a severed hand in the woods and brings it back to Jon and a horrified Sam. In Vaes Dothrak. Vaes Dothrak is the only city in the Dothraki Sea, located near the far northeastern edge of the region. It lies in the shadow of a single vast peak known by the Dothraki as the Mother of Mountains. The entrance to Vaes Dothrak is marked by 2 large statues depicting a pair of stallions. In Vaes Dothrak, Daenerys attempts to convince Khal Drogo about the benefits of an invasion of the Seven Kingdoms, but Drogo is reluctant to cross the narrow sea, despite the thousands of ships they could find in the free cities to do the job. He says that a man doesn't need an iron chair, but only a horse. Daenerys travels to the marketplace with Esser Jorah Mormont and her handmaidens. She asks Jorah to help convince her husband since the Seven Kingdoms are hers by birthright, but he reminds her that her ancestor Aegon the Conqueror took 6 of the 7 kingdoms, because he was capable of doing so with dragons. A little bird gives Jorah a message from Varys, a royal pardon for his crimes. He quickly realizes that this news would only come if he was no longer needed as a spy. Seeing Daenerys with a wine cellar, who is keen for her to try a particular vintage from the arbor, Jorah realizes that the wine has been poisoned. This is the assassination attempt. Having second thoughts, he steps in and stops Daenerys from drinking it. The wine seller attempts to flee, but Ricardo brings him down with a bolo tangling his ankles. With the wine seller captured, Ser Jorah tells Daenerys that Robert Baratheon will never stop trying to kill her and her future children. Drogo quickly arrives in the tent. He glares at the seller, and then goes to Daenerys to ensure she is okay, before offering Jorah the reward of any horse he chooses for foiling the assassination. Enraged, he begins to yell out in Dothraki that his army will cross the poison water, as no Khalasar has done before, and take the Iron Throne for his son. Drogo's Khalasar departs Vaes Dothrak the next morning with the wine seller tied naked to the saddle of Daenerys' horse, forced to walk, until he eventually falls of exhaustion and is dragged to his death. In King's Landing. King's Landing is the capital and largest city of the Six Kingdoms, located on the east coast of Westeros in the Crownlands, just north of where the Blackwater Rush flows into Blackwater Bay and overlooking Blackwater Bay. King's Landing is the site of the Iron Throne and the Red Keep, the seat of the King of the Andals and the First Men. Lord Eddard Stark meets with Cersei Lannister. He tells her that he knows the secret that Jon Arryn died for, that Cersei's 3 children are not Robert's, but the product of incest between her and Jaime. Cersei does not deny the charge, and in fact is proud of it, comparing their love to the old Targaryen practice of marrying brother to sister. She also admits to having despised Robert ever since their wedding night, when Robert drunkenly stumbled into Cersei's bed and called her Lyanna. Eddard angrily tells her to take her children and leave the city immediately. When Robert returns from his hunt, he will tell him the truth of the matter, and Cersei should run as far as she can before that happens, lest Robert's wrath find her. Cersei icily calls Ned a fool for turning down the throne himself after the sack of King's Landing. Eddard tells her that he has regrets, but that isn't one of them. Cersei departs with a chilling warning. When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. There is no middle ground. In one of his brothels, Littlefinger instructs the newly arrived Rose and another prostitute, Armeka, on how to please their customers and make them happy. When they ask him to join them, he refuses, saying that he only ever had eyes for one woman. He tells them about his past, how he loved and fought a duel for a woman. He lost and subsequently realized that he could never beat those in power by honorable means, as they would never let him compete on equal terms. When Rose asks him what he wants, he says, "Oh, everything." In the Red Keep, a blood-stained and shaken Renly finds Eddard and tells him that Robert has been badly mauled by a boar and is not expected to survive. Eddard finds Robert, telling Joffrey that he wishes he could have been a better father to him. Eddard chooses not to tell Robert about his discoveries, to spare his final hours from pain. Robert instructs Eddard to make a letter naming him as the Lord Protector of the realm, to rule until Joffrey comes of age. Eddard does not write Joffrey's name, instead saying the rightful heir. Robert also asks him to cancel the attempt on Daenerys Targaryen's life. Leaving the chamber, Eddard talks to Varys and Esser Barristan Selmy. Selmy laments that Robert insisted the others stand aside to let him take on the boar alone, and blames himself for failing in his duty, though Ned gently reassures Barristan no one could protect Robert from himself. By asking Selmy a seemingly innocent question about the wine, Varys slyly points out that Lancel Lannister ensured the king kept refreshed with alcohol during the hunt, meaning his reactions were slowed and unreliable. Varys also says it is far too late to stop the attempt on Daenerys' life. At King's Landing, Renly confronts Eddard and offers him 100 swords to take Joffrey into custody, insisting that any delay will only serve Cersei's schemes. But Eddard refuses to dishonor Robert's last hours by shedding blood in the Red Keep and taking frightened children hostage. Renly suggests that he could make a good king, but Eddard angrily points out that Stannis is Renly's older brother and the true heir. In his study, he writes a letter laying out his findings to Lord Stannis and instructs a courier to take the message to Dragonstone, Stannis' island fortress. Littlefinger then arrives and talks to Eddard, who tells him the truth about Joffrey's parentage. Littlefinger suggests that they keep quiet, acknowledge Joffrey as king, and make him their puppet. If he proves intractable, they can reveal the truth and crown the more malleable Renly instead. Eddard considers this treason. Littlefinger realizes that even though Lord Eddard has Robert's edict naming him regent and protector of the realm, he doesn't have the men. He needs to seize control from Cersei. He needs the loyalty of the City Watch, as only their numbers can give him the force to overwhelm Cersei's loyalists. Littlefinger understands that the Honorable Eddard Stark can't come right out and ask him to bribe them, but agrees to do what needs to be done. In King's Landing, Eddard is summoned to the throne room by King Joffrey. Robert has died. He arrives to find Littlefinger and Varys waiting for him, along with Commander Janos Slynt and a detachment of the City Watch. Varys tells him that Renly has fled the city, along with Esser Loras Tyrell and a number of retainers. The party enters the throne room, where Joffrey sits on the Iron Throne. He demands oaths of fealty from his counselors and subjects. Instead, Eddard gives Esser Barristan Selmy the proclamation naming him as Lord Protector of the realm. To Barristan's shock, Cersei takes the paper shield and tears it up. Instead, she suggests that Eddard bend the knee and swear allegiance. In return, he will be allowed to return to Winterfell. Eddard responds that Joffrey has no claim to the Iron Throne and commands Slynt to take the Queen and her son into custody. Instead, the City Watch kill Eddard's bodyguards, and Littlefinger holds a knife to his throat, saying, "I did warn you not to trust me."